Great. So I'm Louisa and I'll be taking you through the grammar today. I'm going to start with a quick agenda so we know where we're heading. Perfect. So thank you. What we're going to cover today, we're going to start with our key takeaway. So if you remember nothing else, our key takeaway. And then I'm just going to show you or demo you the sort of direct method I use to teach English. I found it to be the most effective, the simplest, and the most enjoyable way to teach grammar. And it's worked for me. There are many ways to teach grammar, but this is one of them, and I think it works really well. And I'll show you two examples of that. And then with those examples, it will be your turn, as we mentioned, to go into breakout rooms and work something out based on the premise of the direct method and our key takeaway. I'll briefly then talk about 3 reasons why we might not teach grammar. There may be some good reasons too. And then in case you need some more grammar help, we'll signpost where you can get that and how we might be able to support. And finally, we'll end with some questions and answers, and we'll try and leave plenty of time for that because there's always many. If they're quite in depth and really technical, just for the sort of good of the group, we may sort of take that offline or help you and support you and signpost you in a different way, but we'll do what we can, of course, to address your concerns. So I hope that's all good and clear. So what is our key takeaway today? It's always best to start with that so we know where we're heading. So I think it's this. Context is king. Context is king. What do I mean by that? Well, quite simply, grammar is best introduced and understood when there's a clear context or theme, or when the meaning around the grammar is really obvious and clear. Simply, learners remember better when it's meaningful, when it connects to something in real life, for example, and when it occurs as a natural part of communication. And when we do it like that, it means that grammar isn't something separate and conceptual to be studied. I think someone else mentioned earlier, you know, students don't like it, you know, it's a grammar lesson, boring. But actually, if you think about grammar, it just supports our language and communication. That's all it is. It's a tool. That's all it is. It's part of our natural communication. And I think it's best presented in that way as well, where possible. I think the other thing about when grammar is king, and sorry, context is king, it means that the sort of meaning is obvious. So we don't have to explain the grammar as much. It's become obvious from the context. So what do I mean by that in reality? So here's an example about, I guess, how not to do it from my childhood, and apologies for any sort of language teachers here, French teachers or something, but I was at school, I was learning French, and the teacher came in and wrote on the board verbs that take avoir. So clearly it was going to be a grammar lesson. My first thought was, take avoir where? Where are you taking it? Well, I leave it alone. So it was a bit like, where do we start? And immediately I was bored because we're going to do a grammar lesson, right? And I guess if that translated into the English classroom, it could be, you know, someone walking into the board, like, right, today we're going to do past tenses, and writing a load of past tenses on the board. This is our focus. No meaning, no context, boring immediately. And I think a lot of explanation. This is a past, this is a present, that sort of stuff. That's what we're trying to avoid. Think about it like this then. Imagine I was going to lead with past tenses and I was thinking context is king. So I thought, I need to do past tenses. Context is king. What could I do? Well, I might want to set the scene. So just an example, I might bring in some sunglasses, camera. We don't really use cameras and stuff. A bucket and spade. You don't have to go any further, William, at this point. And I might have students guess the theme. You're all on mute at the minute, but I'm hopeful you might think the theme might be holidays, maybe. Okay, so I've got my context, I've got a theme, holidays, and then I could just start, and I might say, I'm going to talk about my holiday. I'm going to talk about my past holiday. Now the theme is holidays. I know it's in the past, and it kind of creates a bit of a scene within which the grammar can sit. And if you think about it as well, you're not having to sort of start with lots of explanation. You've got people engaged and enticed and hopefully wanting to know more. And this sort of links neatly on to what I call the direct method, which is really just that as an example. And I'm essentially being direct, not explaining, leading with a very clear context. And as I mentioned before, this very direct method of teaching grammar I found to be the simplest, the easiest to use, very good, particularly with lower levels when you're showing rather than having to use lots of language to explain things. And if you're a very seasoned teacher, then maybe this might seem a bit basic, but hopefully it's helpful and a bit of a refresher. But if you're new to teaching, I hope you might feel encouraged, because I don't think it's rocket science. It is about, as I say, making it as accessible as possible and setting that grammar in this clear context and being really, really direct. So I'm going to demo this now, putting the context is king together with a direct method. And you're going to be my learners. So could you please unmute yourselves? And I'd probably lead by starting with a picture or bringing in some bits and pieces like a bucket and spade. I mentioned my theme was holiday. So, Will, if you can show the next slide. Because we're online, yeah, and we're probably aiming at this. If you're introducing past tenses for the first time, they're probably not going to be the best learners most advanced learners in the world. So I think it's probably about elementary, which is just a stage above beginners, say. Okay, just to give you an idea of the context there. And here is what I would lead with. Something like this. Again, I could bring buckets and spades in and stuff as well. Okay, and here's how I would introduce this. I'm going to tell you about my last holiday, my holiday in the past. When you hear the verbs, circle them. Circle the verbs when I say them. One of the verbs I use twice. So listen, circle the verbs. Which verb do I use twice? Okay. Last summer, I went to Spain. It was great. I ate paella. I took a lot of photographs. I visited the mountains and I read lots of books. It was a fantastic holiday. Great. So which verb was twice, William?
It was.
Perfect. William, tell me something about my past holiday.
You went to Spain.
Great. Barbara, tell me something about my past holiday.
You took lots of pictures.
Steve, tell me something about my past holiday.
You read lots of books.
Fantastic. Tricia, tell me something about my past holiday.
Visited lots of sites.
Wonderful. And Beverly, something else about my past holiday.
Ate lots of paella.
Lots of paella. Well done. It was delicious. William, can you tell me about my whole holiday? My whole holiday.
Okay. You went to Spain. You ate lots of paella. You took lots of photographs. You read lots of books. You visited lots of places.
That's all right.
And it was great. And I forgot the other
Great.
one.
Well done. Fantastic, everyone. Good. So, William, this holiday, was it the past, present, or the future? When was this holiday?
The past.
Excellent, excellent. It was the past holiday, and these are past tense verbs. Great. Well done. Start there. Super. So if you could mute yourselves again. Thank you, class. You did very well. So hopefully that was really straightforward. If they had never seen these verbs before, they're all on the page. It makes it really clear. I don't think they needed to understand. They didn't need me to say this is the past or the present tense of this. It was really about my holiday. I was communicating something. The context was clear and they understood that, I hope, at some level. And you all understood that these were past tense verbs around the holiday. And this is all very well. I would make sure, of course, that everyone would have a chance to say a sentence in the past, get their mouths around it, and I might ask a few people to tell me the whole holiday to get everyone, you know, to make sure they could sort of, you know, get their heads around it as well. And that's all very well, but then what next? I've introduced this, that's the first sort of 10 minutes of a lesson. Well, I think next what I'd look to do is consolidate this, maybe extend a little bit, but I don't want to introduce too much. This will be brand new. These are maybe new verbs. They may have heard of one or two, but I wouldn't necessarily know that. So the best thing I can do is have them practice in pairs or groups, because that's good use of class time. What could I do? Well, there's a few things. Firstly, I could have a handout, or this could be on the board, and they could just in pairs run through the holidays and say it again, and I could go around and monitor. It could be that I introduce a few more very obvious verbs just to give them a bigger repertoire. So, for example, walk, walked, something like that. So, talk, talked, that are very obvious. So maybe put a few regular verbs in there just to increase their repertoire, see if they could match them up, something like that. But then they've got these past tense verbs. If you think about the past tense as something other than grammar, past tense enables us to tell stories. That's what it does. And we are storytellers, essentially, you know, what we tell people about ourselves and our past. So it can be really powerful. And I think it's great to use that power. Again, moving away slightly from the grammar, but actually, what does this enable you to do? Communicate your story. So then obviously, I think an obvious one would say, look, tell your partner about a holiday you've had in the past. So tell me about your holiday. Where did you go? Maybe if they were younger, maybe they draw it first, or, you know, kind of put a little board together. But that's, I think, just a really obvious, natural way to do that. Was there, did I see a question come in the chat, William, about this in particular? Obviously, the questions will be at the end, but was there something about this that anyone had a question about?
Not directly about this, no.
Okay, great.
But we'll get to those other questions as and when.
Perfect. Because a lot of us, I think, not necessarily just, but are teaching sort of those lower levels, I thought we'd also do a second demo for beginners. Great. So I want you to imagine, and maybe this is real for you, you've got a class of beginners, and it's not the first lesson, so you've done I am, so they can say I am so-and-so, or you are the teacher. Maybe they're just a very basic I am sentences. What you're trying to do is reinforce the verb to be, I am, you are, he is, she is, because it's just so useful in everyday life. So you're going to sort of reinforce it. But again, we're not going to go in and say today we're doing the verb to be. We're going to hopefully just give them a few ideas. Now, here in this next example, I don't think the context is quite as strong, but hopefully it's a way of introducing the grammar without saying, let's do grammar. Okay, so this isn't what I'd show them. I'm just showing you about the components of the verb to be, and then I'll show you how I would use it. So just in case anyone's not aware. So William, if you show the next slide. So hopefully these are pronouns that they would already be aware of. So John and Abdul will be class members. They sort of know he or she, I, he, it, Anna. Okay, so that's what they hopefully would know already. And I'd be using these in the lesson. And they'd also need to know a bit of the verb to be on the next slide. We're not going to do plurals like we or they. We're just going to keep it to the really simple one, am, is, or are. Okay. And this is actually what I would start with. I would just start with this. Okay, the next slide, please. So in the class, I would actually just start with some basic adjectives, because what I want to be doing is sentence building. So I would start like, ooh, cold, cold. William.
Cold.
Cold. Excellent. Excellent. Oh, you can take yourselves off mute again, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, class. Cold. Everyone.
Cold.
Cold.
Angela.
Cold. Cold.
Cold.
Bethan.
Cold.
Hot.
Hot. Everyone.
Hot. Hot.
Rose.
Hot. Hot. Hot.
Okay. Everyone.
Cold.
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 Hot.
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 Happy. Everyone.
Happy.
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 Brenda.
Happy.
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 Everyone?
Happy.
Happy.
Cold.
Cold.
Hot.
Hot.
Everyone?
Happy.
Happy. Sad.
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 Sad. Sad.
Okay, just quickly. Sad.
Sad.
Everyone?
Sad.
Everyone?
Happy.
Cold. Hot.
Perfect. So I keep it moving, just sentence building, drawing the components out. Then I go on to the next slide because I think it's important that they can also use nouns and in a different way. So, okay, next one. So they might know some of these because often people do know the concrete things rather than the more abstract things. They may know one or two of them. And to be fair, I do exactly the same thing again. Dog, you know, that sort of, just make sure they know it as much as possible. They don't have to know them, like really know them. It's just really a way of introducing some more words real quickly, keeping it moving, making it really graphic and simple. And once they've got this broadly, I was confident enough that they broadly knew it, I'd move on to some sentence building, and I'd do this. So this is a really lovely way to build sentences, and I haven't led with this because it could be a bit overwhelming to begin with. I'm breaking it down for our learners, simple concepts to be simple adjectives and also some nouns to begin with. So I would model first. I am cold. Everyone?
I
am cold.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. William, 1, 2, 3. Choose another.
I am happy.
I'm happy. Well done. Good job. Good job. Bethan, maybe John. 1, 2, 3.
John is sad.
John is sad. Well done. Really good. So I'm just giving the idea to sort of build up a few sentences. Now, it could be that after my example, Bethan said, John am sad. That's very possible. That's okay. So, John am. Anyone? And maybe someone else would correct gently, or I might just say, John is, he is, Anna is, Abdul is. So I might wait for someone to make a mistake before I jump in, because remember, I thought they broadly knew I am, you are, and I'm just sort of a teach, test method. I'm just sort of testing the water to see what they can put together. So once we've done this a few times, going around the room, just some sentence building. Again, I'd put them in pairs, put them in groups, maybe have a bit of a competition. Who can make the most sentences, for example? Or we could keep going around the room, speeding it up. And we could do it verbally, we could do it in writing. But what we're doing is reinforcing that structure, reinforcing the verb to be, hopefully without saying we're doing the verb to be. Now, it's not wildly exciting because, you know, beginners do need a little bit more structure and it needs to be a little bit by bit. But once we've kind of got this, we could do something else. We could have somebody to reinforce this at the front, miming something. And then someone else have to say, and if they've got it correct, they go to the front and they mime something. And then they say, oh, Anna is cold or John is hot, you know, something like that. So we can sort of build on this really basic, and I think there's quite a sense of achievement in building sentences, creating things that work. And it's really basic and hopefully fairly simple. So with this one, with beginners, it's very much the same. It's very direct. You might just have to break it down a little bit more. So sometimes starting with the vocabulary, if you like, the nouns or the adjectives, and then building the structure around it could be quite useful. This could be a little bit overwhelming in one hit. I hope that's kind of clear and helpful. Okay. Now, what we're going to do next, sorry, the cat just come in. It does this every time. I never know where it is before a webinar, and it makes it kind of useful, kind of available. So now we're going to go over to you, which is very exciting. And in preparation for going into breakout rooms, on the left, you're going to see some sort of basic grammar. And on the right, you're going to see some themes. And just on your own, in your own heads, just want you to think about how you might, which grammar and which themes link best together. Great. So we've got the present simple there. Modal verbs for obligation advice. Don't worry about what that means. Essentially, that just means must or should. Question forms. Well, how we practice question forms. And the future for arrangements and plans, like ing. I'm shopping tomorrow, for example. I'm going to go to the shops tomorrow. So there are our 4 grammar points. Let's have a look at the themes, William. That could be a doctor theme where you give advice. One on daily routines. Maybe a diary for the week ahead, and a job interview. Just for 30 seconds in your own heads, match the grammar to the theme. Great. Do you want to match them up, William, and see if you've got the same as we've got? These are just possibilities, by the way. There's a million options. Present simple, daily routines, get up, wake up, have a shower. That is fantastic. We modelled a bit last time, but actually that daily routine is quite great because they can actually build up a little story, which is super. Next one. Obligation advice, yeah, doctor. Where would you think? Where would I go to get advice? It could be an agony aunt, but it's more likely day to day. Doctor. Question forms. The job interviews are great for question forms, both present, past, and future. And future arrangements, yeah, a diary. The week ahead. Super. Great. So now we've got our themes. We're going to go over to you. Put you in breakout rooms. And just plan a 2 to 3 minute grammar presentation. Now, it doesn't mean that you're imagining that your learners have never heard of these things before. It could be a refresher. You don't have to go too deep. You don't have to present it as I've presented. You just could explain it. But what we're really looking for you to do are a few things in your little groups. These are our rooms, first of all. There'll be one looking at the diary in the week ahead with the ing in the future. There'll be room 2 will be at the doctor's obligation advice, should versus must. Routines. Job interview question forms. Okay, so you'll know by your breakout room title which one you're in. Lovely. 8 to 10 minutes together. How would you introduce it? How would you set the scene? You might use mime. You might use a basic dialogue, which you could both, people could role play, or for example, and you could have that written up if you wanted to. You might use a picture, which you could look on the internet if you want to, if you decide on a sort of type of thing you're looking to do. You could write, of course, put something in a chat. You could draw something or something else. Again, use the internet. We've put video there. I wouldn't worry about looking for video too much because you could spend a long time looking at YouTube videos, but that's just a possibility. Sometimes video could be great, simple. Realia just means real things. It could be you've got sunglasses and whatever if you wanted to do the past tense. And then nominate one person to explain or show to us how you would do it. Bearing in mind, context is king. You want to be as direct as possible. How would you, at the beginning of a lesson, use the theme to showcase the grammar as an intro? Hope that's all clear. William and I'll be dotting between breakout rooms, see how you're getting on.
Or it does something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we could have a daily routine with I and another daily routine with you, the same thing, but with the S at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, with she, he, yeah.
So I get up at 7, he gets up at 7.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps we need the different characters at the beginning, like we just had in Louisa's demonstration. Yeah. Okay, do we want a little list of verbs like we had with the Spain holiday?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What would be some good verbs for typical daily routine?
Wake up. Yeah.
Get up.
Wake up or get up?
Breakfast.
Both.
Wash.
Well, maybe just 5 or 6 to start.
Yeah.
Clean tea.
Yes. Yeah, so we would have targeted words to do with the stomach and their ache and how they felt. Yes,
Yeah.
on the whiteboard.
You might
Is
want
that
to
okay?
have words like diarrhea and vomiting.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Lovely words.
And food poisoning.
Yes.
Like, have they eaten something?
That's exactly what was in my dialogue today. It's very
Oh, it couldn't be better.
Yeah. Because her boyfriend was a bad cook.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, but anyway, what should we get onto the actual, we diagnose.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, could we sort of have perhaps a little role play?
Yes.
Of somebody I'm visiting the doctor, one person, well, the teacher perhaps be the doctor, and then somebody would go and say they've got a stomachache, and then we could gradually, because we'd have to bring in all the modal verbs, couldn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, so
William's coming in. William, we don't know, where do we get the pictures from? Or are we just meant to be describing them?
You can describe them. If somebody's got a computer and you just have a picture, you can just grab a picture off Pixabay or the internet, and then we can share it. But don't worry, if not, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. We've got our ideas, but we haven't chosen. I mean, do you want me to do it, or does somebody else want to do it? Is any volunteers?
Great if you could be our spokesperson, Angela.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to do it. With what we got so far, William, is we're going to have bring an actual death diary, but have the a picture with the days of the week. If you can find us one, Monday, we're going to go through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we're going to do examples, like we might have a picture, if you can find us a picture of a dentist, and do things like a Monday meeting with a friend, Tuesday I'm going to the dentist, we've got eating lunch, and we've got going to the airport by taxi, or getting a taxi to the airport. We've got that might be a bit long, but the idea is we could also maybe do some mime. We'll do the examples up front, and do some mime, but we just we haven't had time to look at.
Don't worry, that's fine. Just I would go with the mime. If I can grab something out from my picture bank, I will, but don't worry too much. I think I've got a diary. I'm not sure about a dentist. I've got the doctor, obviously. But
Oh we didn't want to go to the doctor. Somebody wanted the dentist.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, great appointment.
No, that's true. Not in Exeter, anyway. Okay, I'll let you guys carry on. We'll close it shortly. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, super.
Okay. Lovely. So well done, everyone. I mean, there's no wrong. It's a good idea just to be thinking about how we could do these things. No wrong answers. Well done. Who wants to go first? William, do you want to lead with the groups?
Shall we? Well, who is in group one? Pop your hands up.
We are.
Right, Angela. If everyone else, Angela, are you going to speak for group one?
Yeah, I'm going to get with the diary group. Yeah.
Lovely. If everyone else can pop themselves on mute, that would be really good. And there you go. There's Angela. So go ahead.
Okay, this is the wrong year, but you have to pretend it's 2022. We start and we show an actual large diary, and then we bring up, which we've not been able to do yet, a picture with the days of the week, and then we teach on Monday, on Tuesday, and then we start maybe using with a couple of pictures, perhaps a dentist, or maybe show a picture of some food, and we say like on Monday, I'm meeting with a friend. On Tuesday, I'm going to the dentist. So show the picture. And then we've actually got, somebody said, I'm getting a taxi to the airport. So picture of a taxi, and then doing babysitting. So actually having mixture of pictures, if we can find them, mime, but having the same, using the on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, but because it's near future, we think we'll probably keep, and also to not be too complicated, we'll just bring in the I'm eating lunch with family, I'm getting a taxi, I'm doing babysitting, and then with the combination of the mime, and we've got the picture of the days of the week, and yeah, the pictures and the mime and everything together, they will gradually, and then we'll sort of see where it goes from there. Okay.
Lovely, well done. Really like that. I love the idea of bringing a diary in to begin with. Something about physical stuff really does grab people's attention. I love the idea that you're miming and reinforcing, and also I love that you chunked it down. You weren't giving the whole sentence, you know, on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday. First, stop, let's get that going. Then let's mime the things, and then let's put it together. I think that can work really, really well. Super. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, oh, what would a great extension opportunity from that? Potentially everyone could have a blank diary page, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You could then read out what you're doing on those days, and they have to sort of put them in, like Wednesday dentist or Thursday. I thought that'd be quite a nice, neat extension, just as you were speaking. But I think that's great. I think if I was in your class, I'd be like, yeah, crack in. I don't feel like I'm learning grammar. I feel like I'm being able to organize my week and talk about what's coming in the future. So that's really neat. Well done that group. Lovely.
Great. Okay, well done. Group 2, put your hands up. Chris and who's going to tell us about your group? Is that you, Chris?
You're on mute at the moment, Chris.
Maybe just as well. So I do a mime and I ask the students, what's the matter? And I try and use these phrases, what's the matter? I've got her. And then I put some vocabulary on the board, and we thought of vomiting, like that. We also tried to think about diarrhea, which we didn't really manage to do, but you could put pain on passing water and that sort of thing. Maybe have a little specimen bottle. And then we could do the modals. You shouldn't eat anything, you must go to hospital for an operation. And then we could get the students to do a different symptom. What's the matter? I've got a sore throat. Or I've got diabetes, you must lose weight and not eat sugar. So we could do a whole lot of symptoms and diseases on this model.
Very graphic. I like the again, I think just the mime, and I think the idea is I don't come away again from that lesson thinking, oh, I've had to learn about modal verbs. I'm like, oh, I know how to go and get advice from a doctor. I know, do you know, it's that, it sort of fits within that context. I thought that was really clear, really well done. I was just thinking, because potentially you've got quite a lot of vocabulary there as well they might not use, and I know you were miming it, which is brilliant. I wonder about doing some sort of matching activity, symptoms, and possible advice, which they could perhaps draw lines to first. They've sort of got that as a bit of scaffolding, you know, maybe something like that to be. I don't know how you feel about that, Chris. That's just an idea.
I mean, going to the doctor has so many different aspects that you really could do. You'll need several lessons, I would have thought.
Yeah, you might need to condense that down to the most common ones potentially, and then they could mime it and then give advice and potentially role play it between them.
You could start off with learning body parts. You learn how to negotiate the receptionist to make an appointment, all this sort of thing.
Brilliant.
Great stuff. Really graphic. Really, really well done. And that's interesting you should say that. I think when we're teaching English in the UK, it could be that's sort of a few lessons. It could be body parts, couldn't it? Like you say, and then it could be symptoms and all the rest of it. It could be modal verbs after that. So it could be that it's actually a bit of a staged lesson over 2 or 3. Great. Sorry, just want a comment come up there. Brilliant. Well done, that group. Lovely. Who's next?
Group 3. Let's put your hands up. Great, Tanya, Janet. And Janet, I popped in. Are you going to be sharing with us today?
I'm the lucky one, yes. So we have modelled it very, very closely on the Spain holiday. So some pictures of everyday activities and then the list of verbs or small phrases. Sometimes there'll be some phrasal verbs there, such as wake up, drink coffee, have breakfast, walk the dog, work, sleep, watch TV, just very much modelling it on what Louisa did with her Spain holiday. So every day I wake up, every day I drink coffee, etc., and then ask other people to echo that and to fill it in either in part or in whole. We could also mime out, act out those activities, not just have them on pictures.
That's a great idea for reinforcing, isn't it? So have the pictures, read it out, they could do it, and then they could, yeah, act it out afterwards. Fantastic idea. Really, really neat. And again, really graphic. And I don't think, oh, I'm learning the present tense. I say, I'm getting to talk about my day. And I'm naturally using the present tense as part of that. So that's really neat. Again, mime, pictures, supporting all of that. Very graphic. Well done. Nice. Good. And finally, we had I think this is the toughest group because, yeah, I'll explain why in a moment. So I think you guys were doing really well, but I think this was quite a tough one.
Who's going to present for this one? It's going to be you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I got the short straw because I asked the question. Everyone turned around and said, "You are." Yeah, no. Well, I'm glad you said it was tough, Louisa, because I think we found it a bit tough as well. So first of all, we decided what sort of level we would pitch it at, and we decided that probably it would have to be intermediate or above. Then we thought about the context, what sort of context of an interview, and we thought maybe applying for some kind of job, hopefully something within their experience in the UK. So we thought maybe something like waiting in a cafe or restaurant, or some kind of serving job, something fairly simple like that. And then we talked about how we would introduce the activity, and we had several ideas. We thought maybe you could use the furniture in the room, arrange it like an interview. We thought of using a picture, maybe even using a video of an interview. And then I think the thing we liked best was perhaps to use a job advert, which would have sort of all the requirements and explain what the job was about. And then we then went on to think about the questions. What sort of questions could we ask? And again, we realized we've got to be fairly diplomatic and careful here. So we thought just sort of basic questions like, your name, where do you live, how long have you been in the UK, that kind of thing, without going into too much of their backgrounds and so on. So that was a tricky one. And then we ended by looking at what sort of, in terms of preparation for the activity, what sort of vocabulary they would need to be familiar with. And that's as far as we got. And then the thing came up saying we've got 60 seconds left or whatever. And then we all flew into a panic.
Neat, really good. And I tell you why it was a tough one, but I think you did really well with it. I love the idea of using the room and just rearranging the room and making it really clear, showing a job advert or showing a video of an interview, or just making it absolutely clear why everybody is there. I think the toughest part is actually question forms are so varied, aren't they? It's hard to make a question in English. You could do the past, present, the future. The opportunities for that are crazy. And there is a case for just going for it, just saying, there you go. Question, now it's an interview, you know what the job's about. Talk together, one's a candidate, one's the other thing, and there's merit in that. That's a communication activity. If you wanted just to sort of take it down a peg or two with something as open as that, it could be you might need to do a bit of a refresher. It could be that you need to contain it a little bit because it's just so wild. If you think your group haven't got quite the language to handle it, it could be, for example, that you say, right, past tenses, present tenses, and future tenses. We're going to just concentrate on those today. And maybe just do a little bit of scaffolding. I want to ask about your past. Give me some questions and just go with that. Just making sure they can use some past questions. I want to ask about your present, and you might give a model sentence like, what do you do at the moment? What's your job at the moment? And get them to elicit and just look at, so they've got a few models on the board, maybe 2 or 3 from each section. And then further, if you wanted to break it down further, rather than just say, go and communicate, you could put questioners together in one place and candidates together in one place, and the questioners have to think of a load of questions between them, and the candidates have to think of some potential answers, but that means they've got to think of the questions, so they're sort of prepped for the communication activity.
Okay, yeah, that's Louisa, that's really good. I think that's great advice. Well done, all groups.
But really good. You had the toughest one because it was so broad and wide ranging.
Yeah.
I think you introduced it in a really good way. So good stuff.
Great. Okay, shall we move on to the second part of the presentation, Louisa?
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting there, really. And this is just around, sometimes it's not always great to teach grammar, and I'll explain why. I think at lower levels, I think hopefully today, what we're saying is, yes, teach grammar, but do it in context, make it functional, make it real, make it part of your communication. We're not doing grammar lessons, we're doing communication lessons, or we're doing lessons that enable them to function better in this country or the other country or whatever, but in English. And quite often the reason not to teach grammar is your student actually has bigger issues than the grammar. So quite often I find with students, they say, oh, if only my grammar was better. And actually, it's not really the grammar. There's so much more to communicating than grammar, right? So using your voice, using your spines, using vocabulary, it's better really to speed up a little bit sometimes rather than get everything 100% accurate. It's different if you're studying for an exam, if you're a kid in school that needs to do stuff. But a lot of the time, especially for people in the UK, what we need our learners to do is communicate faster and quicker and not worry too much about their accuracy. And they can get really hung up on, when I learn grammar, I will be fluent. When I learn grammar, I will speak more. It's actually not about that is about confidence. You need to be telling them, look, it doesn't matter if it's right. Go out, practice in shops, speak. Our learners in the UK need to say as much as possible and understand as much as possible as quickly as possible. And grammar sometimes can be a barrier. So when you hear them say, oh, my grammar's really bad, I'm sorry, or anything like that, please don't worry about that. Please speak. Listen. You know, it shouldn't be the sort of biggest deal in the world. That's not to say it's not important. I think the other thing is too much grammar can impede fluency. I had a student once who said to me, and she's quite fluent, is it on the train or in the train? It's a little prepositions, these tiny little words. And for ages I sort of batted that away, and then she finally said, look, I want to do a lesson on that. And she was paying me, so we went through the lesson. And for weeks afterwards, she was thinking, triple thinking, quadruple thinking in her mind. Is it in or on? Is it off or out? Before it was just a one-off. Now it becomes a thing, and it was something I said, please, it doesn't matter. In the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter. So again, it's just kind of gauging how important is this grammar point. You might be told you have to do the grammar, that is a different point. But if you don't, what's important to this student? What do I need them to do to sort of speed up, communicate, have confidence, and not worry too much about getting things wrong? And then I think the third thing is, as teachers, I didn't know any grammar until I did a TEFL course, and I love grammar. Then I wanted to tell everyone about it all the time. And I realized my motivation sometimes it's quite tidy, it was quite testable, and it was quite a neat thing to do. Whereas actually English language is convoluted, it's messy. You never just have a neat lesson and they've gone and done it and they've off they go in the world. It was quite nice to have a little tick box to do. We've done the present perfect, like good. And sort of kick that down. So again, I think it's just being aware of our motivation as teachers. What do they need to communicate and get by? And why am I focusing on that thing? Is it my pet thing, or are there some bigger issues at hand? So that was just my little pet peeve around grammar, I guess. But otherwise, go for it. And that was it. So how is your grammar? So it could be that as a teacher, you feel you need a little few more pointers. And we're just going to touch on that briefly.
First of all, I've been teaching since 1991, on and off. And my go-to book whenever a student asks me a question is Practical English Usage by Michael Swan. You can see there, I've actually got one copy here. That is the third edition. This is the fourth I'm showing you. I've actually got the second edition, which predates my teaching. I use them every day still. And if you're only ever going to buy one book, that's the one I would go for. It's known as by its author, Michael Swan. So it's everything you need. Fourth edition is £35. The third edition now £6. They're pretty much the same. So I would recommend everybody, if you're teaching, get that. Just some very quick and easy, useful websites for you and your classes. And there will be a PDF of this coming across, so don't worry about having to write it down. I love EnglishGrammar.org. It's just exercises and quizzes. It's by topic, which I find really helpful. It speaks into the context that Louise has been presenting, and you've got a selection of downloadable resources. So that's a good one to start with. Can't go far wrong than the British Council. They're lessons aimed at English learners, but they're very simple. And they're also quite good if you're at your early stages of your grammar knowledge that help you to learn as well. And finally, Grammar Monster, a more recent site. It's a great glossary of everything grammar terms. You've got quizzes, you've got common confused words there as well. So that's a really useful one. So those are free. Check those out. Okay. So thank you very much for joining us. And we'll save off and we'll say goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.